Do it.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies.
You need to back off.
You look bloody awful. What are you doing here?
My ass remains unwhooped.
It's not funny! It's never been funny! It's never gonna be funny!
Well, yeah, that's what Hulks do. We smash things. I smash fourth walls and bad endings. And sometimes Matt Murdock.
Morning.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's your pal NOMZ here. And wouldn't you know it, She-Hulk completely destroyed the first official MCU appearance of Charlie Cox's Daredevil, under the helm of Kevin Feige.
Who could have predicted this?
Hell, destroyed is putting it mildly. It's more like they absolutely annihilated the poor bastard. Before we go any further, I just wanted to say, look, I know I usually have that little disclaimer at the start of every video, warning for some profanities to come. I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to my rants, this is going to be more excessive than my usual rage fests. So bear that in mind, you have been warned. But I apologize for nothing, as all of it was warranted, and chances are, this company deserved far worse. Look, I quit the MCU months ago. I had no interest in She-Hulk whatsoever, but then again, I'm sure no one was interested in She-Hulk for that matter, and I never planned on indulging any of it, really. But the Netflix Daredevil series, on the other hand, as well as Charlie Cox's portrayal of the character, is one of my favorite series and characters of all time, and definitely one of Marvel's best works of live-action comic book adaptations, if not the best. So what forced my hand into action, and me wanting to make this rant, was when one of my buddies sent me this.
Morning.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
You hear that, witch? I'm gonna watch you burn right along
Counselor,
with you, hear
please
me?
Like, I knew what they had planned was going to be bad, but dear lord, bad is a compliment for this shit. Again, truthfully, I never planned on making this video because I decided I was done with the MCU after the train wreck that was Spider-Man No Way Home, and judging by the MCU's track record since then, well, it's been disaster after disaster, and well, I can confidently say, no big loss so far. But the biggest disaster, it would seem, at least for MCU Phase 4, was yet to come. She-Hulk, Attorney at Whore. Or is it She-Hulk, Attorney at Bore? I don't know, take your pick. They're both applicable since the show is apparently without a plot, leaving it boring as fuck, except for the fact that almost every episode apparently revolves around She-Hulk spreading her legs all over dating apps for someone with or without eyes, foreshadowing, that can tolerate her shitty personality for more than 5 fucking seconds. Well, at least that's what I've heard about the preceding episodes of She-Hulk, because I haven't been part of the collective dumb enough to fucking watch them. Yes, when I said I was done with the MCU, you bet your ass I meant it, hence why I didn't watch She-Hulk, which, judging by the reception that walking, talking, fourth wall breaking abortion received, yeah nah, I'd say that was a pretty wise fucking choice on my part. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. A mentally challenged baboon could have seen the She-Hulk disaster coming across the fucking Milky Way galaxy. But that being said, regarding the MCU, I also stated that there would be exceptions that I may indulge in, and one of those exceptions, you bet your ass, was going to be Daredevil. Or more accurately, the Netflix Daredevil, played by Charlie Cox, that Disney stole and inserted into their Hindenburg of a fucking franchise, and who they've now thoroughly ruined worse than I or anyone else could have possibly imagined, or in most cases, predicted. So regarding this video, from my part, it's only going to be discussing the episodes where Daredevil is involved. And let's be frank about this, Daredevil, as soon as Kevin Feige got his hackwit mitts on him, was and is a deer in the fucking headlights henceforth. Pardon this little tangent here, but I'm briefly going to discuss the finale here since I know people are extremely pissed with it. Now, part of me wants to sympathize and be like, I understand how you feel. But a bigger part of me really wants to say, just what the fuck were you expecting?
What were you thinking? What was going on in your mind?
Let's be clear, She-Hulk didn't ruin the MCU. The MCU was already fucking ruined.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hence why I stopped watching it. She-Hulk did, however, ruin the fuck out of the only good thing the show had in its inclusion, which is why the video is called How She-Hulk Ruined Daredevil. Let me guess, this is the part where everyone thanks Kevin Feige for bringing Daredevil into the MCU? Sorry. Stealing another creative team's Daredevil and tossing him into the MCU?
Thank you, Kevin Feige. Love you, Kevin Feige. Thank you, MCU.
Oh my god, my insides are on fire!
Because he's the one you should thank for the She-Hulk finale being a pile of shit.
This is the story that Kevin wants.
Oh, God bless these utterly clueless, dumb shit writers. I'm going to enjoy using that clip from now on for those who still think this is all a part of Kevin Feige's master fucking plan.
Because it's all part of the plan.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message. Everything burns. What's the next step of your master plan?
Crashing this plane.
But back to the finale and the batshit lunacy on display. Ironically enough, the self-awareness this show tries to put on display couldn't be any more oblivious to what the problem with the MCU actually is. Self-awareness in that saying, yes, you know you are bad at your jobs.
You guys suck!
Thank you.
Neither fixes the problem nor helps anything or anyone. In this case, it's used in the fashion of, there, we said it, trolls, now leave us alone, without actually being sincere about it. And only shows your audience, Jessica Gao, how sincerely you don't give a fuck about them because you're mocking them. Firstly, truncating criticism down to, oh, it's just trolls, LOL, is the quickest way of telling everybody that you're a deluded narcissist who lives in a fantasy world, sniffing your own farts like they're an Armani fucking fragrance. And secondly, you do this and you have the nerve to complain about why fans attack your shit show later on the fucking internet?
It's ludicrous.
You guys brought it all on yourselves, and you'll get no sympathy from me. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as we enjoyed watching you spit on Daredevil and the Netflix Daredevil series. Side note, if you want more content on the subject, feel free to check out the video I made on this a few weeks ago. Most viewers who tortured themselves with She-Hulk said it already aged like fine wine. And the others that didn't, well, let's just say I ain't too bothered by them because judging by the comments they've left, it would appear they all share the same brain cell. If I was to throw a small olive branch to those people, I am willing to say the one good scene this terrible show did for Charlie Cox was the initial introduction courtroom scene with Matt Murdock, where predictably he shows up, commands the courtroom with his charisma, makes the law his absolute bitch, and walks the fuck out. Unfortunately, it's also slightly undercut with some low-key mockery to his heartbeat hearing abilities.
No, I didn't. He's lying. Don't ask me how I know, I just know.
Yes, we can all tell he's lying, Mr. Murdoch.
But regardless, I'll take the one and only W this shit show was merciful enough to offer Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock. The rest of his scenes, however, not so much. So here's how this is going to go down. As I said, I don't give the faintest fuck about She-Hulk. The show was dead on arrival and was always going to suck. As I said, I'll only be discussing the episodes involving Daredevil, meaning episodes 8 and 9. And you guys probably think I'm going to skip straight to the Walk of Shame, but as bad as that is, it's actually the least of what pissed me off as a fan of the original Netflix Daredevil series. Oh boy, let's begin. Starting with Kevin Feige's talentless trademark bread and butter, we begin with the shameless Netflix Daredevil baiting.
That's bait.
Hands up if you were one of the poor saps who tortured themselves week in and week out because they couldn't wait for good old Daredevil to show up. And because you thought he would show up relatively early on in the series. Congratulations! You fell hook, line, and sinker for a Kevin Feige trademark, including that little mid-season reveal for that new ugly fucking helmet of his. Yeah, blow me, comic accurate or not, that god-awful thing doesn't have dick on both the Mark 1 and Mark 2 Daredevil suits from the Netflix show, but You all fell for the latest trend to ensconce Marvel because they've literally got nothing else going for them since Endgame, and you watched a god-awful show, boosted the Disney Plus numbers enough, sending Marvel the wrong message that you're dumb enough to keep doing it, and in doing so, despite terrible reviews, Marvel Studios are now more than likely going to greenlight a fucking second series, so have fun with that. So if She-Hulk Season 2 ends up happening, you all know who to blame, but then again, seeing as how abysmal the numbers were for this series, as a whole, well, maybe not.
And the truth shall set you free!
But for the rest of us, with a functioning brainstem and a modicum of self-respect, it's going to be a very hard pass now, isn't it? Hell, you think I saw Daredevil's first MCU appearance on Disney Plus? Fuck no! Nor did I wait week after fucking week for him to show up, because I know how Kevin Feige does business nowadays. The motherfucker can't create, so he just baits, and then he steals other assets from other creators, and then you guessed it, he continues to fucking bait. Until you get about 5 seconds of fan service, and then the credits roll. And then predictably, all the fucking brain-dead Marvel fans take to the internet and be like, that was the best fucking thing we've ever seen. I mean, at least Toby and Andrew had a substantial role in No Way Home, but I attribute that to Sony's management having the final say on that production, considering the track record Kevin Feige has, whilst trying to do the same thing with his own productions. But you can bet the baiting in No Way Home was all Kevin fraud fuck Feige. And if that isn't apparent enough by this point, then I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you're just beyond reason at this point. But let's get on to what other shameless baiting this shit show did to mock fans of the Netflix Daredevil series. Now, I saw passed around by both MCU and the worst of the Netflix Daredevil fanatics who will cling to whatever the fuck they can to not let She-Hulk's fecal matter smudge their rose-tinted fuckhead goggles by any and all means necessary, and what they've been passing around is that Charlie Cox in an interview said Daredevil Born Again, whenever that fan service orgy abortion gets here, isn't going to be Daredevil Season 4, but instead it's going to be a Season 1. Which according to some of these people is him insinuating that MCU's Daredevil is not going to be related to the Netflix version. Okay, well firstly, just from a common sense standpoint here, that's a given. Anything to do with the Netflix Daredevil series will never be MCU canon, and any attempts to do so will be considered nothing but fan fiction. For better or worse, that's just the way it works. Secondly, Charlie Cox's statement was most likely implying a soft reboot, meaning the Netflix show will still be considered a prequel according to said MCU fanfiction. And 3, if the Netflix Daredevil series canon is supposedly being ignored by the MCU, then what the fuck would you call this exactly?
So, are you like a superhero?
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock!
Like the Gold Devil?
I'm Daredevil.
These cocksucker showrunners have the nerve to shamelessly use the Netflix Daredevil theme song whilst doing a by the numbers play the fuck out what's your superhero name joke? Seriously?
Star-Lord. Who? Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw.
So, you're the Spiderling. Crime-fighting spider. You're Spider-Boy?
Spider-Man.
Not in that onesie, you're not.
It's not a onesie.
Like, it doesn't get any more cookie cutter and bottom of the barrel than this shitty fucking humor, which is, at this point, a trademark of the MCU, and which is what we were all fucking worried about. According to the canon they're pretending they're not fucking trying to ape from, Daredevil has been active for many, many years in New York. I mean, yeah, sure, he's the devil of Hell's Kitchen, and Hell's Kitchen is relatively small in New York, but he should be extremely fucking renowned by this point. Across both New York City and all across America by this point. Funny how he was never mentioned in Spider-Man Homecoming or any of the other New York-centric MCU products up to this point. It's almost like the MCU was ignoring Daredevil and never considered the Netflix series to be canon. Well, until it was time to insert member berries in order to bait hype for the next terrible fucking production they have. Exhibit A, using the Netflix series' own fucking theme song. Again, the most hopeless fanatics of the Netflix Daredevil series creamed their pants over this because they were giddy to see Charlie Boy back in his now very crappy pajamas and hear that infinitely awesome theme music once again that they lacked the spatial awareness to know the MCU, Kevin Feige, and the She-Hulk writers were openly fucking mocking them. But this isn't even the most egregious example, which comes later. See, avid watchers of the Netflix Daredevil series are extremely fond of one of the show's trademarks, which is their 10-minute long one-cut fight scenes that usually take place inside of a hallway of some kind. Whether it's an apartment complex, a stairwell, and of course my personal favorite, inside a fucking prison. Although choosing your favorite Daredevil one-cut fight is like choosing your favorite Lord of the Rings movie. They're all stellar, but choosing one simply is going to leave the others hanging out to dry. Now, She-Hulk, rather than trying to do things its own way...
Why don't we just do things our own way?
Aside from not making its own Daredevil, which we know the MCU is simply incapable of doing, much like how they can't create a Spider-Man villain worth a shit, so they just stole Sam Raimi's for No Way Home. What this show decides to do, instead of doing its own thing, is once again and far more blatantly mock the very fans whose series they stole from. Instead of just having a standard fight scene, what do these narcissistic cuckolds and their Rose Tico-like clueless dumb stump of a writing lead decide to do? They choose to bait a classic Daredevil hallway fight scene, very, very, again, blatantly coasting off of what they know made the original series and Charlie Cox's portrayal of the character so beloved in the first place, purposefully hyping everyone up for a moment they've sorely missed since the series was cancelled on Netflix, thanks to Disney, never forget. The very fans that they are baiting to bolster their shitty She-Hulk viewer numbers on Disney+, hyping them up to see another classic Daredevil one-cut ass-kicking hallway fight scene until...
She-Hulk smash.
I need you to hold my ears.
How can anyone fucking defend this? The ones that are defending it, are you that fucking dense to know that you're being openly mocked by this shit fuck of a writing team and Kevin Feige? They're basically saying, screw it you love, ours is better, fuck you. And thus shattered the woke meter in the process, reaching the pinnacle of cringe with that god-awful one-liner. But here's the thing, like I said, I wasn't tuning in every week, and I sure as shit didn't see the premiere of this episode, but when one of my viewers shared this clip with me, much as I wanted to burn Marvel to the ground because of how shamelessly insulting the scene was, a part of me was laughing on the inside at least, because this scene is also so incredibly ironic at the same time. See, the most consume all, forgive all of Netflix Daredevil fanatics try their damnedest to laugh this off and just be like, haha, oh, they teased us, they totally get Daredevil because reference, look how self-aware they are. Again, bear in mind, self-awareness that is completely disingenuous and narcissistic, as I explained earlier. These same fanatics who are so willing to give these writers the benefit of the doubt just tell themselves, that's okay, don't worry, I'm sure we'll get a classic Daredevil hallway fight scene next time. To which I say... Get fucking real, mate. The true irony of this scene isn't the fact that they bait and switched. It's the fact that they had to do it because guess what? Common sense is calling. You really think the same people who made this woketivist fucking abortion could even, to the slightest degree, replicate the magnificence of Daredevil's incredible one-cut hallway, stairwell, and prison fight sequences? Fuck no! Not a chance in hell, no pun intended. They baited Netflix Daredevil fans, but they didn't have the fucking brain chops to pull it off. They couldn't deliver, and so they had to disguise their incompetence with more incompetence, and chose to give She-Hulk a fucking entrance with that woke one-liner crap that made anyone with their taste buds firmly developed throw right the fuck up. Oh, but this is but the very tip of the MCU cringeberg that is about to blanket Charlie Cox and the torturous material he was unfortunately subjected to with this series. Let's continue. So what else did the MCU decide to fuck with? Well, people seem to notice that they decided to turn Daredevil into an acrobatic Spider-Man, exaggerating his agility and his strength to the point of almost making Affleck's Daredevil jealous. Almost. But that being said, it wasn't as particularly egregious as Kingpin's over-exaggeration, where he was practically unfazed by getting slammed into by a car, yanking people into midair and punching them across the room. Like, you'd think this motherfucker was Captain America or some shit. That being said, Daredevil's MCU acrobatics, I will admit, are borderline. in terms of over-exaggerating the character. Not particularly offensive by any means, but given how things are going, his physicality probably will get more ludicrous as the MCU continues to nosedive. And besides, a little excess flipping is far from the worst thing this show did, and so nothing to get too hung up about. Especially when you take into account the fact that Daredevil's entire personality is completely fucked up. Because predictably, Kevin Feige decided to turn Charlie Cox's Daredevil into the only character archetype he knows how to fucking produce, which is simply just a carbon copying of Joss Whedon's character models of 5 quips a fucking second that the MCU has been running rampant with since the banter addict's wet dream called The Avengers 2012. The difference being, Joss Whedon actually understood what made those characters tick and knew how to make it work, whereas the MCU in most cases, barring a few, has only made piss-poor attempts at simple mimicry without any of the artistry. We were treated to 20 seconds of Daredevil with his new shitty costume on, and yes, I reiterate, the new suit looks fucking disgusting, deal with it. Not a minute in, with a new terrible ugly suit before he starts offering spine-crawling quips that would make even the most hardened Netflix Daredevil fan cringe themselves into a coma.
My ass remains unwhooped.
Yeah, let's fix that. Why didn't you tell me that before we fought?
Why didn't you ask me before immediately trying to whoop my ass?
I'm pointing at myself.
Oh, yeah, I know. I have echolocation, remember? You don't have a thing. You don't ever do this. Just follow my lead.
I angle this more as a form of traumatic expression due to undiagnosed PTSD.
I'm just a big fan of legal dramas.
You slimy motherfuckers, you MCU-ified him, didn't you?
You did, didn't you little fucking snake?
And now for the very likely retort, but NOMZ, Daredevil was always lighthearted. They're just adapting the comics. Haven't you ever read the incredibly shitty Mark Waid run where Daredevil walks and talks like a complete jackass? But that's besides my point, which is this. The MCU isn't adapting Daredevil Yellow from the 60s, and it's not adapting the Daredevil Mark Waid run, where apparently it's normal for Daredevil to act like a bumbling cringe-tard.
My ass remains unwhooped.
The way She-Hulk is portraying him as. No, the MCU isn't adapting those Daredevil runs. It's adapting this one. The Netflix Daredevil series, with the same actor because they want to get the audience's panties wet, so that they'll tune in to watch every week, praying that he's going to show up. But Disney, Marvel, and Kevin Feige have a very specific vision for the character. A vision that doesn't fit this Daredevil's mannerisms, or continuity for that matter, despite Charlie Cox's talents. Because the Netflix Daredevil series was very much based on the Frank Miller comic run, including Man Without Fear and Born Again, which the MCU is baiting harder than a throbbing cock on Viagra for its more than likely shitty reboot series.
18 episodes. Daredevil, Born Again.
But that being said, the Frank Miller comic runs were meant to, how should I put this? Take itself fucking seriously! Something the MCU has forgotten to fucking do since Avengers Endgame. The closest being maybe Spider-Man No Way Home. Despite that movie's plot being a total shit show. Granted, Endgame had its fair share of problems as well, but again, it felt like that movie was taken seriously. As well as most of its characters, I'll say that much.
Time travel!
The Frank Miller Daredevil comic run that the Netflix series was based on was known for its grit. Its violence, mature themes and implications like drug addiction, prostitution and human trafficking, things firmly on display and well portrayed in the Netflix Daredevil series, things fans loved about the series. Once again, the same fans the MCU was using this adaptation to drag over to their cratering fucking franchise. And what does Kevin Feige and the MCU decide to do? Do they decide to do right by those fans and stay faithful to the Netflix adaptation, whose assets they've poached for their own product? No. They decide to do exactly the fucking opposite. And this is why fans are so pissed off. But that's not to say that the Netflix Daredevil series didn't have its own style of humor and light-hearted moments, because it absolutely fucking did. It's just unlike traditional bottom-of-the-barrel MCU humor that just constantly memes on the absurdity of superheroisms and laughs at the cliches.
Goons and henchmen are two completely different animals. The henchmen believe in the cause, whereas goons are just there for the paycheck.
Henchmen, goons, whatever.
Again, the kind of humor that a toddler could come up with. The Netflix Daredevil humor was actually tastefully done.
Nelson and Murdoch. Avocados at law.
Avocados?
It's a long story. We're talking about a squad of trained killers loose on the streets, not the kind of guys you challenge to a fist fight in your underwear.
It's not underwear, Foggy. Underwear is comfortable.
All I can hope to do is keep your wounds stitched and your head clear so you can be safe. And I'll be more careful about giving advice to the devil. And occasionally, possibly, I'll try to keep my mouth shut.
Could I get that in writing?
Let me ask you this.
What's that?
What about hope?
Oh, fuck.
Come on, Frank.
About Santa Claus? You want to talk about Santa Claus?
No killing.
Altar boy.
So to the people making this defense for She-Hulk, saying the Daredevil character has some very terrible instances in the comics of being portrayed in this light-hearted manner, again, first off, that's a terrible defense, and secondly, the Netflix Daredevil series had some very charming humor to it, but it simply wasn't trying to beat its audience over the head with it. And thirdly, again, you're missing the point, which is they are changing an adaptation that they appropriated, and putting it mildly here, they are filling it with inserts from another comic run that meets their family-friendly, by-the-numbers, MCU-ified, watered-down vision for the character. Now, if the MCU and hack fraud Feige got off their asses and decided to create their own version of Daredevil with a new actor who gave a new original portrayal of the Daredevil character, I'm sure fans, or former fans like myself in this instance, would be far more forgiving. But see, the MCU and its pathetic management and creative staff is incapable of creating anything original nowadays, which is why they're poaching assets from other creators and franchises and shoving it into their franchise. And of course, if they actually created their own version of the character, not only would fans have been more forgiving, but more than likely they just straight up wouldn't have given enough of a shit to fucking watch, which is why the MCU opted to have the Netflix Daredevil show cancelled, waited until the Netflix license expired, and as soon as they moved it to Disney Plus, proceeded to mold or molest the character into their own terrible Frankenstein vision that nobody who understands what they were doing is going to accept. In other words, what they're doing is bottom of the barrel, scummy as fuck, and you shouldn't support it. And finally, we get to the last dead on arrival terrible thing that the MCU did to ruin Daredevil. Well, so far at least, because there's still plenty more to come. But regarding She-Hulk, the series decides to wrap up episode 8 by having Matt Murdock, after a whole lot of nothing conversation with Jen Walters, decides to shack up with this unlikable bitch who he's known for precisely 5 seconds and who he has little to no chemistry with whatsoever. And no less while he's wearing his new terrible looking fucking Daredevil suit.
God fucking damn it!
And then these fucking writers have the balls to show him doing the walk of fucking shame through the streets of Los Angeles.
Morning.
My God. Yes, it would move me to tears if I still had tears to shed.
What in the holy fuck have you show writing, failed abortion fucks done to Daredevil? No, seriously, please, if you would, MCU stands in the comments section. Please, what is the defense for this lunacy? I'll wait. Go on, grace us all with your off-the-fucking-spectrum lack of logic. Look, there's being lighthearted, and then there's being completely fucked all the way up, and that's exactly what this show is actively trying to be. This is garbage. Absolutely irredeemable trash. But you know what? The walk of shame is just extremely low-hanging fruit. I'm not going to beat this into the ground for 20 minutes. You guys know it's fucking bad, or at least I hope you do. So then what about a disgrace to Daredevil and Matt Murdock's character that's a little less obvious? Well, what about the Matt and Jen romance? Let's get back to that. Why is this just stupid from every possible angle? But NOMZ, Matt Murdock is meant to be a playboy. He sleeps around a lot. Okay, first of all, I'm sure that's true in some of the comic adaptations. And yes, even in the Netflix Daredevil series, Matt Murdock was very much a charming ladies' man who played the field, certainly.
You got a new phone? We afford that? Hey, 1 sec. Foggy, I'll see you tomorrow. It's a girl, isn't it? You got a new phone just for your girls. My life sucks. Get home safe.
But people who seem to be propagating this also seem to forget that he was also a very polite, chivalrous gentleman and a devout Catholic. And since, despite how much the MCU wants to blur the continuity lines with, "Duh, it's a reboot," well, sort of, but not really, since they're constantly referring to the Netflix Daredevil series, despite the fact that this is supposed to be a new Daredevil, apparently. No, sorry, it doesn't work that way. Cut the bullshit, Feige. You want the assets, but none of the continuity responsibilities? Go fuck yourself. Like it or not, you still have an obligation to respect the continuity established in the Netflix series, especially when it pertains to characters, and especially characters that you've stolen for your own crummy product. And going by the continuity that Charlie Cox's Daredevil belongs to, yes, Matt Murdock is a bit of a playboy, but he's also a mature and responsible person. He doesn't just bang the first random green fucking lawyer bitch he meets in another state.
Matt Murdock. She just curtsied. It was adorable.
Well, it's nice to know chivalry isn't dead.
Now, how do I know this? Well, because Matt already went through his wild adventurous phase when he met Elektra in college. She was extremely hot and mysterious, and she seduced the living dick out of him, but she was also an extremely bad influence on him for many reasons, which is why he calls it quits with her, and that was 10 years prior to the first season of the Netflix Daredevil series. By then, Matt is a completely different person. He's grown up. He's become much more faithful to his Catholic upbringing. Now, personally speaking here, as someone who was raised Catholic but doesn't practice the faith all that much, and someone whose best friend is a devout Catholic, I can tell you these people aren't so quick to randomly hook up with strangers. Now, obviously, I'm generalizing here. I'm sure there's numerous examples of people who would, but there's numerous examples also from the Netflix series that point to Matt Murdock being someone who wouldn't. Like Matt being extremely chivalrous towards Claire, the off-duty nurse who saved his life when he almost died, who he immediately found attractive, but waited until the right moment, and after the two of them knew each other well enough, that he made any romantic advances towards her at all.
I was wondering if you're ever gonna do that.
Well, I've been a little busy.
And that's not even talking about the ace in the hole in this instance, which is Karen Page, who he originally met while she was in crisis, even let her stay in his apartment and get undressed in front of him, let her stay the night, and all this without making any even remotely construed romantic advances towards her whatsoever. Matt Murdock only made romantic advances towards Karen Page after he had spent months getting to know her as his personal assistant, and after the two of them had their first date together, this happens.
Come on. If you like.
I would love to.
Bet you won't.
Not tonight.
It's okay.
Can I tell you why? Because I have this incredible ability to bring disaster to the best things in my life, and tonight has been perfect. Don't you think?
Yes.
And if I stop now, then I get to keep this one perfect night, and also have the chance of keeping it going tomorrow, and the day after.
And the day after that. Then I guess it's good night, Mr. Murdock.
Good night, Miss Page.
Matt opts to not have sex with Karen because he wants to take things slow. Because he has a history of rushing into romance and screwing things up in his relationships, and he doesn't want to rush into anything with her because he wants to do things right. And Elektra was the prime example of someone he jumped into bed with too quickly and ultimately set his life off course, which led to everything getting screwed up. Now, granted, Elektra was a special case, but the point stands that Matt has grown up. He doesn't sleep around like he used to. So why the actual fuck would Matt Murdock jump dick first into a romance with She-Hulk? He doesn't know her. He has every reason not to be attracted to her. The two have little chemistry, and it's completely out of character for him. In fact, he was actually considering taking her out to dinner, but this chick who's completely unlikable and is just a straight-up thirsty bitch just wants to jump on his dick?
Hey, maybe next time I'm in town, I can take you out to dinner.
Yeah, maybe we could skip all of that and just...
Which, yeah, okay, I'm not sure why Disney would see this as a positive depiction of someone who's meant to be a heroine for young women, but also, just what the fuck does this mean for Matt and Karen? Since the end of Daredevil Season 3 heavily hinted that they'd try to work things out. And make no mistake, and I shall once again iterate, I'm not really a Karen Page fan. There's plenty of issues I take with her character in the Netflix series, but she has way more going for her as a character than this bitch does. And she has actual chemistry and history with Matt Murdock, whereas She-Hulk comes across more like a cringeworthy self-insert from a writer who wanted to live out her own thirsty fanfiction, and is further evident when the show decides to double down on this in the finale and makes light of She-Hulk essentially turning Daredevil into her boy toy.
Well, yeah, that's what Hulks do. We smash things. I smash fourth walls and bad endings. And sometimes Matt Murdock.
Oh.
Stop! He's already dead!
So what? I guess the She-Hulk series and the MCU as a whole is just saying fuck Matt and Karen's development because they're just shoving him straight into an incredibly forced romance with Jen Walters, completely out of character, completely out of place, zero build-up or development, and in the fucking Daredevil suit, which is something Matt Murdock would absolutely never do. Fuck this shit show. And then after She-Hulk breaks the entirety of the MCU, well, what was left of the MCU, and writes her own shitty, terrible fucking ending, probably the worst ending by a comfortable margin in the entire MCU, she basically forces Daredevil through the fourth wall to show up after she didn't have to lift a fucking finger to beat her own villain and emasculate him even further, saying, "It's all been taken care of, hun. Oh, by the way, since you're out in broad daylight in your devil ninja costume that you only use during the cover of darkness because you're meant to be a fucking ninja, and I know you and I aren't the faintest fuck acquainted with each other aside from getting plowed the other night, but oh, by the way, do you want to meet my fucking parents? Like right now? The fuck?" And so then Matt Murdock is fourth wall fucked into being Jennifer's boyfriend, and he's just shat all over in this cringe fuckery of a scene while everyone is just praying that the show just finally fucking ends already. Or hell, I'd welcome the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse on the horizon. It's not like humanity doesn't deserve it at this point. Hell, you know what? I take it back. Much as I like Endgame, maybe it should have ended with Infinity War. Because it turns out Thanos was right all the fuck along. And that is how the MCU and She-Hulk ruined Daredevil. Part 1! Part 1! And expect part 2, 3, and God only knows how many times Feige is going to fat-face fuck Daredevil's character to pieces. Yeah, again, I know this video may be on the excess side of my usual rants, but fuck it! Seriously, could they have not shat the bed any harder with She-Hulk? The MCU guaranteeing to suck in just about every single one of its productions going forward is no longer prophecy, it's inevitability. Because the same people who are running it are still in charge, and once more, they're fucking proud of it. So why expect anything to change, to get better, to improve? And furthermore, why would you want it to improve at this point? Because the MCU is such a mess that there's virtually nothing left to salvage. And make no mistake, it was all a part of Kevin Feige's master plan. Give him a round of fucking applause. You know how I know it was a part of his master plan? Because like King Midas in reverse, everything that hack, douchebag, cockhead touches with his greasy mitts turns to fucking shit. Seriously, Kev, that's not a cap, it's a condom. Fuck She-Hulk, fuck the MCU, fuck anyone defending this garbage, and rip Daredevil. They massacred our boy, and motherfucker did we ever predict it. Anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of the video. Hope you all enjoyed this little rant, and let me know what you think below in the comment section while I go ahead and plug the channel and other platforms related to it as well. First of all, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to all my Patreon supporters and YouTube members for all of their contributions to the channel. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, I've left the link in the description. Or if you'd like to become a YouTube member, you can just hit the join button below. Also, you can feel free to check out the channel's Discord server. What Discord basically is an online community where followers of this channel can go to congregate and talk about a range of different topics, ranging from Marvel to DC, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, video games, comics, or pop culture in general. Check it out at your leisure, and who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. Also, if you're looking for more Marvel-related content on this channel, rest assured you won't have to look very far. Here's a selection of videos you may enjoy as well. As a content creator on YouTube, it's getting ever more uncertain about how the platform behaves, so feel free to check out my other video platforms as well. You can find me over on BitChute, or you can even find me on Odyssey. Both platforms are great. You should check them out. You should start following them and getting more acquainted with them. Odyssey in particular has taken my fancy. But yeah, in the future, if the channel has any more copyright issues, which it has had quite a bit in the past few months, you'll have no trouble finding videos from this channel, posted on Odyssey, posted on BitChute, and finally, here's one last thank you for staying till the end of the video. You are a legend, and I'll see you next time.
Let me ask you this. What's that? What about hope?
Oh, fuck.
Come on, Trent.
Santa Claus? You want to talk about Santa Claus?